So when COVID hit, I was living in Melbourne with my parents and my sister where I grew up, and I was in my last year of high school. I just turned 18, and I was also in my last year at my dance studio. And I remember hearing things, headlines and everything as COVID was starting to become more of a big thing all over the world. And the main thing I remember hearing and feeling was just the uncertainty and all the sort of rumors that would go around. Like, I remember my dance teacher telling us that we might be able to get it through our eyeballs, and which of course wasn't true, but this was the sort of thing that no one really knew, so it was just going around all sorts of things. And then of course eventually we went into lockdown like the rest of the world, and it was definitely a kind of crazy time, and very uncertain and scary because we didn't know so much about the virus, and we had no idea what it could become and how it could affect people. But I do remember at this time, it was quite a special thing to be able to spend a lot of time with my family because, we were living life and were often quite busy. So it was a chance to stop, and we would be able to watch some movies and really spend time with each other, call other family members on the Zoom, as we all know it now. And yeah, so that was a really special thing. I completed my final year of high school pretty much in and out of lockdown. Most of it during lockdown, but there were a few months where I did go back to school with extra precautions, and such as, masks and temperatures being taken every day. And it was definitely a strange time, and I feel like could be at times a lonely time, but I did find that I was able to still connect with people even though it wasn't in person. I definitely found that it was dancing that I missed the most, and dancing with other people, because school was obviously much more adaptable onto the online space, whereas there's nothing to be compared to dancing with and for other people in a live place. And in Melbourne, we did actually spend quite a lot of time in lockdown. By the end of 2021, Melbourne was one of the cities with the most days spent in lockdown. I was very fortunate though, because in 2021, once I'd finished school, I went to university in Perth in Western Australia, which is quite far from Melbourne, and Perth had quite a strict border requirements for you to actually enter the state, and that meant that the people who lived in Perth could actually live almost a normal existence, which was quite crazy to me. So I did, out of my time spent in Perth, I did actually quarantine for 2 weeks at a time. I quarantined 3 times, and 2 of those times I was by myself in a student accommodation, and that was definitely a really big thing. It was quite lonely and scary, but ultimately it was worth it because it meant that I could engage with other people in person again and dance in a studio again, although we were wearing masks. But it was really amazing to be back in a place where I could go and see live shows, which really, still in 2021, a lot of the rest of the world was unable to do. And Perth did eventually get to a place where there were cases, and it was a little bit more normalised after there was access to vaccines and more access to healthcare and everything. But at the time, I knew of my own family back in Melbourne and my other family I have in the UK that were still in lockdown, so I felt that I was in a very privileged position. And then now that we are all kind of in the sort of post-COVID normal world, it is still something that we can, I guess, at times take for granted, that we are able to be in spaces together when it was just for so long where we couldn't.